Hey, shalom, shalom, everybody. This is John Craig, and it's really good to be back with you again on this edition of Walking in Spirit and Truth. Yeah, it's me by myself again this evening, which is fine. It's good because Sandi has got her hands full, and so it's a pleasure to be with you and hosting it by myself. I do like her when she's with me, and I like being with her. But this is where we are tonight, and we're going to continue in our study for Ezra and some of these different things that really need to be talked about. These things that really are they run parallel with what we call the New Testament or the Brit Hadashah, and you think, wow, so many different people think in the Brit Hadashah, like some of those things are just like brand new and they're unique in and of themselves. And then when you start to look at some of these writings that came out of the Dead Sea Scrolls and those books that they chose not to keep as part of our canon, that's in our 66 book Bible, and you think, well, why would they edit these things out and why would they cut them out? It's a really good question. And you know, I have a tendency to go to more of the sinister side of things, but when I'm looking at these and I'm looking at the parallels and I'm looking at the description and the things that they're talking about, and then I remember the scriptures that we find over in the New Testament, it's like, wow, they're just bringing out the things that they studied, things that they talked about, that they had learned, and they're putting those back into the writings in the Brit Hadashah under the inspiration of the Holy Spirit. So we're going to get into that. Hey, I do want to share with you this quick video. I want to remind everybody, Alive in Messiah is coming up very soon. So we're going to have some live programming, and here it is.
Again to these dry bones, breath of God from the four winds blow. Breathe life again to these dry bones, breath of God from the four winds blow. Breathe life again to these dry bones, breath of God from the four winds blow. Breathe life again to these dry bones.
So we're just 5 days away for Alive in Messiah. So that's going to be beginning this Sunday or the first day of the week. So 5 days. So following Shabbat, we're going to have some great programming here on the lambnetwork.tv. So with that said, I also want to let you know that Sandi Craig and myself, John Craig, we both are pastors at Life of Worship Ministries in Amarillo, Texas. So if anybody's ever in the Amarillo, Texas area and it's Shabbat, we would love for you to stop in and be part of our Torah portion and part of our live services, our encounter service. We have Torah portion at noon on Shabbat, and then our what we call our encounter service, it begins at 3:00 on Sundays Central Time. So we would love for you to come by and join us as well. I'm going to throw on here our website. As you see scrolling on the bottom of the screen, that's our website, www.lifeofworshipamarillo.org. Go over there and check it out. And also, we would love to have you be part of this ministry in terms of prayer support, in terms of financial support. We are definitely need financial partners at this point in time, as there's been some big budget issues that we're needing to get through. So if you have not had an opportunity to give and you've given to Life of Worship in the past, or if you haven't in a while and you say, you know what, I need to give, go to our website there. There is a button that says donate, and it'll connect you with our PayPal, and bless this ministry. And we would be honored for you to do that. But I'm going to tell you this, we can't do it without you. And the way things are right now with the bills that we've had to pay lately, they've been very, very high. And we've had to exhaust everything that we had in our bank account. So go to lifeofworshipamarillo.org. Be generous with your donation, and pray about that, and be blessed as you give and be part of this ministry. So with that said, let's jump over to Ezra. So it's known as 4 Ezra, or 2 Estras. And last week we were talking about several different issues, and one of the things that we had talked about, just kind of in review, was how Ezra was challenged. He's having this conversation with Yahweh Most High, and he's given this vision, and this is after he's had 7 days of fasting. So he's been going through this period of fasting and questioning, and fasting and questioning, and his soul is vexed. And remember, Ezra is a priest, and he is a descendant of Zadok, the high priest under King David, and he is just vexed because of all the wickedness that's in the world, and he's also vexed because of the things that he's been seeing happening to the people of God. So these are the descendants of Jacob, and he's saying, why are these things happening? We are seeing that these people that you've called out to be a special people unto you, O Yah. Here they're supposed to be special, and yet they are the most downtrodden in all the earth. The wicked have risen up, the wicked prosper, and your people are not prospering in all of this time that's going on. And why is that happening? It doesn't seem to me right. And when will this end? And will we ever see this stop? Will the cycle stop? And Ezra is making this complaint, and he's making it several different times, and he's actually rebuked. He's rebuked by the angel. Let me see. Let me catch his name again. Uriel. And he's like, why are you questioning God? And I'm going to ask you that question. Why do you question God? Don't you think, in this one says, how in the world can you ever comprehend God? And why are you trying to bring God down into your human level, as to think that in the frailty and the weakness and the shortcomings of your own mind, your own ability, how in the world can you ever try to think that God's going to think like you? He's way above that. And he's way above your circumstances. And he's like, I want you to just to be thinking about this, because he gave this example. It says, I want you to do this. Tell me, go your way, weigh me the weight of the fire. How do you do that? How do you put fire, on the scales and figure out how much it weighs? And it says, or measure me the blast of the wind. I mean, how can you figure out the volume of that wind, let alone the weight of that wind, or capture the wind in and of itself to be able to put it on some type of scale system? And it says, or call me again the day that is past. In other words, Groundhog Day. I mentioned that this last week. How can you just bring about Groundhog Day? How can you, in other words, relive a day from last week? I mean, just call it back up and just do a repeat. Come on, just do it. And he's, in other words, he's saying that these things you can't do, but this is nothing for El Elyon. This is nothing. And so therefore, the way he's really boiling it down to, and just reminding us that even our best ways, even the smartest people on earth, the most intelligent, the most wise, the ones that comprehend the most, is still foolishness before the Most High. And this is part of this struggle that Ezra is going on. And you can actually sit there and say, well, these are the same type of struggles that I'm dealing with. These are the questions that I have, because when I see the wickedness going on, and I see people, good people, go astray, or when I see bad things happening to good people, and how some people just never seem to catch a break, and yet there's those that are out there that whatever they set their hand to, that just seems to turn to gold. And you think those people are not good people. You could think about, some of the people that we see filling the halls of Congress, or the certain executive residences of the United States. And you say, or you can say Europe, or you can say Canada, or whatever it might be. But you can look at all of these at them, and you say, why in the world do they have all these privileges, and yet Yah's people don't? So, hey, Linda, it's great to see you. And this is from for Ezra. And let me see, I think it is part of the extra books. This is not an apocryphal book. It is, I think it's part of the, let me see if it titles it. I'm reading out of the Sefer, and the Sefer did pull this in. And so I want to make sure where it's at and what you might find it. I think, honestly, it's probably part of the Catholics canon, because they have extra books in there. Give me of that. It is okay. It's of the books of the Second Temple period. And it's of the writings that, in other words, they found these writings not only in the Dead Sea Scrolls, but they did find them in some other places as well. And for example, in the Second Temple period writings, you also have all the 4 books of Maccabees. Ezra and Nehemiah was actually written during this time. Daniel, the Prayer of Azariah, Suzanne and Bel and the Dragon are all included with that. So you might call them apocryphal books. You might call this an apocryphal book because it also has prophecy in it. So there's some thoughts for you. I'm not exactly sure how it's classified. I just think it's one of those really cool books that was left out of our 66 book canon, and which saddens me, but nevertheless. So this is kind of a rundown, some of the things that we were actually talking about. And before, and in fact, what did I just read? One of the things we talked about last week, where it says, so he answered and said unto me, stand upon your feet and hear a mighty sounding voice. Well, how many times do we think within Scripture do we actually see this mighty sounding voice? I'm going to hit another. Yeah, there's another part talking about that. I'm going to draw in some parallels and some parallel passages. And this is in 6:14 for Ezra. And it shall be as it were a great motion. So he's talking about Ezra's going to stand there and he's going to feel a great motion. Now, if you are one who has lived in California, Oregon, and Washington, maybe Oklahoma, because Oklahoma's been getting a lot of earthquakes, but Japan, any of the Ring of Fire islands and countries where they have lots of earthquakes. And it says, and it shall be as it were a great motion, but the place where you stand shall not be moved. Well, okay. How in the world can there be motion and where you're standing not be motion? Okay. And it says, and therefore when it speaks, be not afraid, for the word is of the end, and the foundation of the earth is understood. And why? Because the speech of these things tremble and is moved, for it knows that the end of these things must be changed. Well, so the question is this, what can cause things to tremble and be moved, and yet where you're standing not be moved? It's a riddle, isn't it? I have some thoughts on it. And it happened that when I had heard it, I stood upon my feet and hearkened, and behold, there was a voice that spoke, and the sound of it was like the sound of many waters. And it said, behold, the days come that I will begin to draw nigh and to visit them that dwell upon the earth, and will begin to make inquisition of them. In other words, I'm going to start asking questions. What they be that have hurt unjustly with their unrighteousness, and when the affliction of Zion shall be fulfilled, and when the world shall begin to vanish away, shall be finished, and I will show these tokens or these signs. The Sepharim or the scrolls shall be opened before the firmament, and they shall see all together, and the children of a year old shall speak with their voices. The women with child shall bring forth untimely children of 3 and 4 months old, and they shall live and be raised up. And suddenly shall the sown places appear unsown. The full storehouses shall suddenly be found empty, and the shofar shall give a sound. And when every man nears, they shall be suddenly afraid. And at that time shall friends fight one against another like enemies, and the earth shall stand in fear with those that dwell therein. The springs of the fountain shall stand still, and in 3 hours they shall not run. Whosoever remains from all these that I have told you, whoever remains from all these that I have told you shall escape and see my Yeshua and the end of your world. And that word Yeshua also means salvation, and see my salvation and the end of your world. So I think it's a twofold picture: seeing Yeshua, seeing salvation. Verse 26, and the men that are received shall see it, who have not tasted death from their birth, and the heart of the inhabitants shall be changed and turned into another meaning. For evil shall be put out, and deceit shall be quenched. As for faith, it shall flourish. Corruption shall be overcome, and the truth, and that's a capital T, and the truth, which has been so long without fruit, shall be declared. Now I'm going to stop right there and go back over some of these different things. So think about this, because one of the things when I'm thinking about the shaking of the world is I think about Hebrews, where it says in verse 25. So if you got your Bibles, go there with me and take a look at this. This is Hebrews chapter 12, verse 25 and 26. See to it that you do not refuse him who is speaking. For if those did not escape when they refused him who warned them on the earth, much less shall we escape who turn away from him who warns from heaven. And his voice shook the earth. And his voice shook the earth then, but now he has promised, saying, yet once more I will shake not only the earth, but also the heaven. And this expression, yet once more, denotes the removing of those things which can be shaken as of created things, in order that those things which cannot be shaken may remain. Therefore, since we receive a kingdom which cannot be shaken, let us show gratitude by which we may offer to God an acceptable service with reverence and awe, for our God is a consuming fire. I think that's an incredible parallel. By the way, when he's talking about there in verse 26, and his voice shook the earth then. Well, when did God's voice shake the earth? Is that back over in Exodus chapter 19, in the giving of when they waited and prepared themselves for 3 days, and on the third day that God began to speak, and it talks about how the mountain shook when he began to speak, and the people were so afraid they asked that Moses that the voice stop, and Moses go listen, because they were so afraid. And it says, and his voice shook the earth then, but now he has promised, saying, yet once more I shake not only the earth, but also the heaven. So I think if we draw this parallel over to what was being told to Ezra, and he's talking about, well, if you stand, where you stand is not going to be moved. Well, why would it not be moved? because those things that can be shaken will be shaken, but those things that remain will not. It says, yet what's more denotes the removing of those things which can be shaken as of the created things, in order that those things which cannot be shaken may remain. So what cannot be shaken? Yah's kingdom. Yah's kingdom. So he's telling Ezra, look, I'm placing you are in my kingdom. I want you to be encouraged by this. You're in my kingdom. So when everything else is shaking, including the heavens this time around, now, because in Exodus chapter 19, the earth was shaking. This time, there's going to be something even greater that's going to be shaken. So we're talking about something that is apocalyptic. We're talking about something that's eschatological. It's in the future, and we're looking at these words very closely that's being given to Ezra. And in verse 16, going back to verse 16, and why? Because the speech of these things trembles and is moved, for it knows that the end of these things must be changed. So those things that are temporary, they're earthly, they're of this world, those are the things that are the created things. Those things have to be shaken. And then it says, and it happened that when I had heard it, I stood upon my feet and hearkened. I listened, Shema, and behold, there was a voice that spoke, and the sound of it was like the sound of many waters. Okay. Have you not heard that phrase before? Let's go to Revelation chapter 14, verse 2. Now, isn't Revelation an apocryphal book? Yeah, I believe it is. So here's Ezra saying this. So when John is hearing the same type of thing, and he's recording it for us in this revelation of Yeshua, he's also hearing a voice like the sound of many waters, Revelation 14:2. And it says, I heard a voice from heaven like the sound of many waters, and like the sound of loud thunder. And the voice which I heard was like the sound of harpists playing on their harps. So, wow, this is what Ezra is hearing. And Ezra is like 400 years before John. Isn't it interesting how the date line of things are still the date of things? How am I supposed to phrase this? That there is that the prophecies of God always link together between the ages. How's that? All right. I don't think that's the best way to say it. Let's look at Ezekiel 43:2. Ezekiel 43:2 also brings in another part of that. Ezekiel 43:2. Now, this is very interesting as well, because this is talking about the new temple. Well, did you know that there's some elements about this that Ezra is told? Well, Ezekiel chapter 43, verse 2. Verse 1, it says, then he led me to the gate facing toward the east. And behold, verse 2, and behold, the glory of Yah, or the glory of El, or the glory of El Elyon, of Israel, was coming from the way of the east. And his voice was like, wait for it, and his voice was like the sound of many waters. And the earth shone with his glory. And it was the appearance of the vision which I saw, like the vision which I saw when he came to destroy the city. And the visions were like the vision which I saw, the river Chebar, and I fell upon my face. And the glory of Yahweh came into the house by the way of the gate facing toward the east, and the Spirit lifted me up. Well, I don't want to. I could keep on reading on that type of stuff, but the point I wanted to say, and his voice was like the sound of many waters. So we have two more witnesses that when God speaks, if you ever really want to know, when he's bringing a prophetic revelation, He really wants you to know that it's his voice that's speaking, and it's not the pizza you had last night in those voices that you hear in your head in the middle of the night. Okay. All right. I'm just kidding. So, yeah, when God speaks, it rocks your world. Anything that can be shaken will be shaken. So, why? Because that which is of his kingdom, that will not be shaken. And that's why, how much more we need to be on that ground. Okay. And it is said, behold, the days come that I will begin to draw nigh to visit them that dwell upon the earth. All right. Now, I have some thoughts about that. Now, I can't say, just take it for what it is and you put it on the shelf, but it's very interesting. He says, behold, the days come that I will begin to draw nigh to visit those that dwell upon the earth. Now, I do think about over there in James where the promise is that if you draw close to Yah, he'll draw close to you, which is good. That's the part that you want him to be. You want to draw close to him, and he draws close to you as one who is coming close to his bride, and his bride is coming close to his bridegroom, and that is kind of language of the Moedim, that when we draw close to him on his Moedim days, on his appointed days and his appointed times, then he is there to draw close to us because it's special. It's a very intimate time that we're supposed to have with him. But here, it's not saying anything about people coming close to him. It says he's coming close. Behold, the days come that I will begin to draw nigh and to visit them that dwell upon the earth, and will begin to make inquisition of them, that they what they be, that they have hurt unjustly with their unrighteousness, and when the affliction of Zion shall be fulfilled. So he's basically saying, I'm going to draw nigh, and all these wicked ones that deal unjustly, okay, like those who take the court systems and they use lawfare against people that just simply want to live and not to have this tyrannical rule living around them. They want to be able to say what they want to say. They want to be able to live the way they want to live. They want to live in freedom. They want to raise their families. They don't want the overreach of government or anything like that. And yet we live in a time where government is used. It uses its authority and its power unjustly against the people because of their unrighteousness. Because why? Because they don't follow Torah. And it says, when the affliction of Zion shall be fulfilled. In other words, when there's pain inflicted upon the believers. That's one interpretation. You can look at it. And when the world that shall begin to vanish away shall be finished, then I shall show these signs. The Sepharim, the scrolls, shall be opened before the firmament, and they shall see altogether. Now, I think I didn't look up that passage over in Revelation, but it talks about the scrolls being open, and it talks about those whose name were not found in the book of life would be taken, would be judged. And it says, when the world shall begin to vanish away and shall be finished, and when the Sepharim are open before the firmament, and they shall see altogether, and the children. And it goes on, and it's like all of a sudden, nothing else matters. Nothing else matters. All this richness and this fatness and all this wealth that's been stored up by the wicked, it's all going to be emptied out. It's talking about those storehouses I read about earlier. They're going to be suddenly found empty. And then it says, and the shofar shall give a sound. Well, isn't it over in Exodus chapter 19 that there was the sound of the shofar? And we have a repeat of like what happened at Har Sinai. At Har Sinai, what happened? There's a sound of the shofar. There's the shaking and the quaking. There's the lightnings and the thunders and the voice of God that spoke. And what was the reaction of the people? Well, let's read 6:23 here. And for Ezra says, and the shofar shall give a sound, which when every man hears, they shall be suddenly afraid. They shall be suddenly afraid. So this is going to be a frightful time. Ezra has given us this warning, and so, but why? But let's put it back in context. What is Ezra being told here? Ezra's complaint is that the wicked do not seem to have any type of divine judgment against their wrongdoings. And so Ezra is being shown this is what will happen. This is how they're going to act and react. It doesn't matter how bold and how confident and how much courage they have to do their dirty deeds, is that when that shofar sounds, every man hears, and they shall be suddenly afraid. Now, there was something else I want to talk about too, and where it says, behold, the days come that I will begin to draw nigh and to visit them that dwell upon the earth. Now, what does the day of visitation look like? The day of the visitation, the day of Yah, the day, we can look at it in a couple different places. We can go to, let's go to the book of Joel. The book of Joel. Book of Joel. I got to find the book of Joel here. Bear with me. I have it pulled up. I got it right here. Okay, what happens in the book of Joel? What's it say? 2 verse 1. Blow a shofar in Zion and sound an alarm on my holy mountain. It seems to run parallel, doesn't it? It runs parallel with what I just read. Let all the inhabitants of the land tremble, for the day of Yahweh is coming. Surely it is near. And it says a day of darkness and gloom, a day of clouds and thick darkness. As the dawn is spread over the mountains, so there is a great and mighty people. There has never been anything like it, nor will there be again after it. So we have this distinguishing of these days and that are drawing near. Also, chapter 1, verse 15, alas, the day, alas for the day. For the day of Yahweh is near, and it will come as destruction from the Almighty. So, there's more that goes into that. And no, I'm going to go ahead and read that because it really parallels with chapter 6 in Ezra, talking about the seed being gone and taken out. So it says here, as has not food been cut off before our eyes, gladness and joy from the house of our El? The seeds shrivel under their clods. The storehouses are desolate. The barns are torn down. For the grain is dried up, and the beasts groan. The herds of cattle wander aimlessly, because there is no pasturing for them. Even the flocks of sheep suffer. To thee, O Yahweh, I cry. For fire has devoured the pastures of the wilderness, and the flame has burned up all the trees of the field. Even the beasts of the field pant for thee. For the water brooks are dried up, and the fire has devoured the pastures of the wilderness. So, but who is this reserved for? And this is where we go back and we look at it and say, okay, this is reserved for the wicked, and this is where we're supposed to be encouraged by this. We're supposed to be encouraged by knowing that there is an end, even though it's not in our time. In fact, there's many different times, in even what I've read already in for Ezra, is it says, why do you want to hasten the time of Yah? Don't you think that in his wisdom, he doesn't have to hasten like you want him to hasten? In other words, why do you want to speed things up? Why do you want to get there so quickly? Because there is wisdom beyond our understanding that is being allowed to play out for the fulfillment of all things. So I don't read this because most people will read back over here in Joel and they start reading some of these apocryphal things that are on the negative side, and they think, oh, what a horrible time this is. Remember, this is not for us. This is for them. And so because in verse 25, whoever remains from all these that I have told you shall escape. From all these things that I have told you shall escape. So whoever remains, who's he talking about? He's about you and I. We're the ones that shall escape, and I pray that I'm in that number, and that I'm counted among those numbers. I'm considered faithful among those numbers. I think that's what Eddie Johnson was talking about on Let Us Reason Together yesterday, was saying, I just pray that we are just counted among that number. He said, you should every day get up and pray that we're counted among that number. And whoever remains from all these that I have told you shall escape and see my Yeshua and the end of your world. So remember, it's the realm that we're living in now. It's going to come to an end if it needs to, and it's okay. It's okay. And because why do we talk about these things, and why does it seem more relevant now considering the cultural events that are taking place right now regionally in the Middle East, but in different pockets around the world? Yet, and if these things become global, and they can become global quite quickly, honestly, then we're not talking about anything else other than the advent of the Most High is on his way. It's here. It's now, and it's set before us. And the men that are received, and the men that are received shall see it. So that's why we want to pray. We need to pray that we're found faithful to be able to stand over there in Luke chapter 21. And it says, be on guard. This is Luke chapter 21, verse 34. Be on guard that your hearts may not be weighed down with dissipation and drunkenness and the worries of life. And the worries of life. And that day come upon you suddenly like a trap. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff that we're all considering. There's a lot of different things that are I know are weighing heavy. I know. I get that. I know exactly. Like the only way that I can earn money is that I got to keep my wheels running on my car. And the only way I can keep my wheels running in my car is to be able to put gas in the tank. Well, when you're trying to dig up all your quarters to put the gas in the tank so you can go work, because if you don't work today, then you don't get paid next month. So I understand. I get that. And it says here, verse 35, for it will come upon all those who dwell on the face of all the earth. But remember the buts are sometimes really good. Sometimes people say, well, that but just canceled everything out. Well, maybe look at it this way, that this but cancels everything out for you and me. And it says, but keep on the alert at all times, praying in order that you may have strength to escape all these things that are about to take place and to stand before the Son of Man. What did I just read here? Whoever remains from all these that I have told you shall escape and see my salvation and the end of the world. And the men that are received shall see it, who have not tasted death from their birth, and the heart of the inhabitants shall be changed and turned into another meaning. Okay. For evil shall be put out, and deceit shall be quenched. As for faith, it shall flourish. Corruption shall be overcome, and the truth, which has so long been without fruit, shall be declared. And he goes on and says, and I really like this, because this is really, I just really can relate to Ezra and the pain that he's feeling considering the day and the hour of the world that he's living in. And he's like, man, we just need to can we not catch a break? Can we not just see the unrighteous just wiped off the face of the earth? And here's the words, verse 30 or 29. And when he talked with me, behold, I looked by little and little upon him whom I stood. And these words said he unto me, I am come to show you the time of the night to come. If you will pray yet more and fast 7 days again, I will show you greater things by day than I have heard. For your voice is heard before El Elyon. For El has been your righteous dealing. He has been also your chastity, which you have had ever since your youth. And therefore has he sent me to show you all these things and to say unto you, be of good comfort and fear not. And hasten not with the times that are past, to think vain things, that you may not hasten from the latter times. And it came to pass after this, I wept again and fasted 7 days in like manner. So what is he doing? He's being encouraged. He says, look, I want you to be comforted by these words, and I don't want you to be fearful. I don't want you to be fearful even of these unrighteous people and their unrighteous acts and their injustice and the injustice of these government departments that afflict the people, and they're destroying the rights of people. He says, he says, I want you to be comforted, and don't try to just hasten through and say, oh, Bo Yeshua, Bo Yeshua, Bo, come Yeshua, Maranatha is another way to say it. Yeah, we want that. But the encouragement is to stick with it, because there's a process. And in this process, real justice is going to be done. I think that's really important for us to really see and to hear. So I want to be able to catch, I don't know how much further we're going to be able to get this evening. So he does go. So here's Ezra, and I really appreciate this about Ezra. One of the things that we used to do at Life of Worship was in January of every year, we this is a long time ago, before we had moved our services from Sunday to Shabbat, but nevertheless, it was one of the things that we did, and it was tremendous. It did so much for our congregation and for us individually, and we would start out the new year on the Gregorian calendar with 21 days of fasting and prayer. I think it's probably still a good time of the year to do 21 days of fasting and prayer. Think about that. Maybe that's something that we shouldn't look down on when our apostolic brethren, our Christian brothers and sisters, when they do 21 days of fasting and prayer in January, because honestly, they may not understand Torah, they may not understand Shabbat or the feast days or any of that sort of thing, and a lot of times we have to be really careful about not holding that against them, because they're walking in the light that they have, and many of them really do have a genuine heart to seek the Lord, and they want to know the heart of God. Maybe this will be the year, if they do 21 days of fast and prayer, that they'll get the breakthrough, and that they'll have the courage to make that shift, and that maybe that's what we should pray about. But think about this. We have our feast days, and one of the things that we see, even Daniel fasted for 21 days. Now, I haven't done the research to see exactly maybe what time of year that Daniel was fasting. It's a possibility that Daniel, in his 21 days of fasting, could have been fasting in the 6th month, the preparation month that leads into the 7th month, and the feast days that are in the 7th month. But he could have been fasting the 21 days leading up to Yom Kippur. I don't know. Could be something. I'd like to research that out and find out when Daniel fasted. But nevertheless, to fast, Ezra fasted for 21 days, for 3 weeks, and he's told, okay, you fasted these 7 days, and he gets this big revelation, and he hears the voice of God, and it's like the sound of many waters. And this download comes to him, and he hears exactly what God's saying to him. And he's saying, look, these are the things that are going to be happening upon the inhabitants of the earth. But you who remain, guess what? You're going to escape. You'll see salvation and you'll watch it, even those that have not seen death yet. Isn't that what Paul talks about over in First Thessalonians? I think it's First Thessalonians. Let me pull it up real quick. Chapter 4. For we believe that Yeshua died and rose again, even so, this is verse 14, even so, Yah will bring with him those who have fallen asleep in Yeshua, talking about those who died in Yeshua. For this we say to you by the word of Yahweh, that we who are alive and remain until the coming of Yah, or the coming of Yahweh, shall not precede those who have fallen asleep. For Yahweh himself will descend from heaven. Doesn't that sound like the day of the Lord and the visitation? That he'll draw nigh to visit them that dwell upon the earth. For Yahweh himself will descend from heaven with a shout, with the voice of the archangel, and with the shofar of El Elyon. And the dead in Messiah shall rise first. Then we who are alive and remain shall be caught up together with them in the clouds to meet Yahweh in the air, and thus we shall always be with Yahweh. Therefore, comfort one another with these words. Man, I'm telling you, that's just like I just read that in First Thessalonians. It seems like I just read that in Ezra. Doesn't that sound like that to you? So these are some incredible parallels that Ezra was getting, and this is 400 years before the time of Messiah. And when was Paul? Paul was a contemporary of Messiah. And he's writing this to the Thessalonians. Of course, this is, I believe it's leading up to the destruction of the temple. The temple is still around when he's writing these words. And he's using the same type of language. By the way, this is the same type of language that's written in the Dead Sea Scrolls in the Second Temple period. So when you see these things being repeated in those areas, I think it's very important to take note that the theme is what carries it. And so, but it came through fasting, the understanding of it, the comfort is from fasting. And now don't get me wrong, Ezra is vexed in his soul. I mean, he's really troubled, and he's fasted for 14 days now. And then in verse 35 of chapter 6 is, and it came to pass after this that I wept again and fasted 7 days in like manner, that I might fulfill the 3 weeks which he told me. And in the 8th night was my heart vexed within me again, and I began to speak with El Elyon. For my ruach, my spirit was greatly set on fire, and my soul was in distress. So, I mean, think about this. He's talking about 2 different parts of him. He's talking about his spirit's on fire. So, boy, he's 21 days. He's gotten into that place that he's way past the hump of hunger. But his spirit, because what did we read in Hebrews earlier? That Yah is a consuming fire. So his spirit is on fire. And it says, my soul was in distress, right? Okay, so he's still dealing with, in his mind, his will, and his emotions, he's still dealing with these troubling things about the world he's living in. And so this is the whole purpose of the fast. It's to travail through to the other side, because one word from the Most High changes everything. And I think that's very significant that we need to continue to hang on to. And he said, and I said, O Yahweh, you spoke from the beginning of the creation, even the first day, and said thus. Now, I really, really like Ezra's review of Genesis chapter 1. And I don't know if maybe I should go ahead and read this. Did I read it last time? I might have read it last time, because I have a mark here as if I might have read it. But he goes back through and recalls the 6 days of creation. And I really think that his understanding of the 6 days of creation is to resolve within himself how much the Most High is in control. And maybe during those 7 days, he has had great contemplation of the power and the majesty and the sovereignty of the Most High. And his abilities are not, there are no shortcomings in his abilities. There's no weaknesses, and it's all well planned out. And when you think about that, and he's contemplating these things, that and how tremendous each day of creation was, and how much was done and preserved and created, and the life that came out of it, you can actually see, oh, it was good. It was good. We have this contemplation until he gets to the 6th day. And on the 6th day, he says, upon the 6th day, you gave commandment unto the earth that therefore you should bring forth beasts, cattle, and creeping things. And after these, Adam also, whom you made Lord of all the creatures. Of him come we all. So talking about, we all come from Adam. And the people also whom you have chosen. So he's narrowing it down. The descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. All of this I have spoken before you, O Yahweh, because you made the world for our sakes. As for the people which also come of Adam, you have said that they are nothing, but be like unto spittle, and have likened the abundance of them unto a drop that falls from a vessel. And now, O Yahweh, behold, these heathen that have ever been reputed as nothing have begun to be lord over us and to devour us. But we, your people, whom you have called your firstborn, your Yahid, and your fervent lover, are given into their hands. If the world now be made for our sakes, why do we not possess an inheritance with the world? How long shall this endure? In other words, he's saying, if you made this world, and we're a descendant of Adam just as much as they are, and we have been set apart as your people, then why don't we possess an inheritance like they have right now? And in other words, saying, why isn't it happening to us like it's happening to them? Like this whole theme I've been talking about today, and this is like, and if not, then how long do we have to endure this thing? So, and in verse 1, chapter 7, and when I made an end of speaking these words, there was sent unto me the angel which had been sent unto me the nights before. Isn't that so cool? So do not be afraid of bearing your heart before the Most High, because he's declaring these things. It's like, I don't understand. I still don't get it. But I'm just opening up my heart to you. And then this messenger of the Most High is sent. And he's like, okay. And the angel which had been sent unto me, the nights before, and he said unto me, oh, up, Ezra, get up, and hear the word that I am come to tell you. And I said, speak on, my Elohim. Then he said he unto me, the sea, and he goes on and he's like, look, oh, okay, this is really important. He's drawing this parable. We just got a few minutes left. Maybe I shouldn't get into it. He's drawing this parable, and he's basically saying, look, if a sea was like a river, then it would be nothing then to cross it. Or if the field, if the land is not separated by the sea, it would be nothing to cross between it. And he says, but he's talking about this broad field, and a city is built and set upon a broad field and is full of good things. The entrance thereof is narrow and is set in dangerous place to fall, like as if there were a fire on the right hand and on the left a deep water. And then there is but one path between them, even between the fire and the water, so small that there could but one man go there at once. So in a single file, that's how narrow the path is. If this city now were given unto man for an inheritance, if he never shall pass the danger set before him, how shall he receive this inheritance? In other words, the city that we're looking for has a very, very narrow path. One side is fire, the other side is deep water. In that very narrow path, you can't even pass each other. You got to walk in single file on it. It's treacherous, and it's full of so many different dangers. But when you unless you take this path, you'll never get your inheritance. And he says, look, this is what it's about. If it was just a broad path, a broad way to get there, everybody would go there. And it says, and I said, it is so, Adonai. Then said he unto me, even so also is Israel's portion, because for their sakes I made the world, when Adam transgressed my statutes. Then was decreed that now is done. There then were the entrances of this world made narrow, full of sorrow and travail. They are but few and evil, full of perils, and very painful. For the entrances of the elder. Okay, and it goes on. I'm going to have to go on with that next week because we're simply out of time. So thank you for joining me. We'll pick up on it next time. We'll get more explanation on this. The way is narrow. There's a reason for that. So until next time, shalom.
We are richly blessed to bring you what we believe is the fullest, most diverse, yet up-to-date progressive teachings, discussion, and prayer programming you can find anywhere on this planet. Be sure to take the tour of the MessianicLambRadio.com website. I'm Susan Hoogie, thanking you for joining us on the Messianic Lamb video.